Good evening, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order of the Zoning Board of Appeals on this date of March 7th, 2022. Kevin, did you want to do your part first and we'll get that out of the way?
Sure. You have your quorum present, so that
Yes.
I'm pleased to join you. I can't recall exactly why we're here in March. I've been delayed since January for your officer election, but
we did not have any, we did not meet during those months.
okay. So anyway, good to see you all. And I would ask for nominations for the role of chairman for the ensuing year.
Kevin, I'd like to renominate Laura Edmonds as chairman.
All right. Is there a second for Laura?
John Mahoney.
John, thank you. Second for
seconds.
Cynthia, seconds. Any further nominations? Hearing none. All in favor of electing Laura to another year's chair?
Aye.
That looks, Luke?
Passion in favor.
Aye.
Yeah. So I forget who's regular and who's alternate here, but it looks like it's unanimous, right? Laura, you going to vote for yourself?
Oh, I didn't realize I should. I'm there in second thought. Right?
Thank you. And for secretary, I took nominations for secretary.
I name and nominate John Mahoney.
Is there a second for John?
Cynthia Adele, seconds.
Cynthia, thank you. Any further nominations for secretary? Hearing none. Hearing none, I would ask for a vote for John as secretary.
Passion in favor.
All in favor. All in favor.
Well, all in favor, that's unanimous. I want to thank you all for serving. It's getting to be a tough time to be in leadership roles in New Canaan. So I appreciate your service to the town, and as we all do. And I just wanted to thank you again for another year of service. And with that, I'm going to depart, Laura.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. And we thank you for your service as well. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Have a good meeting, everyone.
All right.
Bye,
Thanks, Kevin.
Bye.
Okay, ready, Lynn? So I'll read how the meeting will continue. What we'll do for those who are new to this process, we will call your case and we'll ask you to identify yourselves and the property in question, state your request for the board and identify your hardship and the reasons for the request. Remember, your hardship cannot be financial in nature and it runs with the land. The board will then ask questions in which you will have a chance or an opportunity to speak, and you will be able to sum up your request. We are recording the meeting, as you know, so please, when you are speaking, state your name. The board will then go into a business session and discuss and make a decision. There are 5 voting members on the board, and it takes 4 positive votes to be granted a variance. Does anyone have any questions about the process? Okay. First one will be 326 South Avenue. The zoning variance upon application of David Rucci, Lambert, Tui, and Rucci, authorized agent for David and Karen Johns for the variance of sections 3.5.d.1 to allow the applicant to maintain coverage of 2,910 square feet, currently 2,960, in lieu of 2,522 as allowable in the 1/3 acre zone, map M, block 57, lot M6. Mr. Rucci, would you like to start? Oh, I'm sorry. Before we do that, Cynthia, you'll be seated for this one.
Madam Chair, we just need to call the roll. That's the
Oh,
only
I'm
thing we
sorry.
didn't
Will
do.
you do that for us, please, Lynn?
Sure. Laura Edmonds,
Present.
John Mahoney,
Sorry, present.
Jessica Cardone,
Present.
Luke Toshjian,
Present.
Cynthia Dahl,
Present.
Richard Carey.
Present.
Sorry, Madam Chair.
That's okay. Okay, Cynthia, so you'll be seated for 326 South Avenue, okay?
Mhm.
And David, Mr. Rucci, go ahead.
Good evening, David Rucci, Lampertu and Rucci. I'm here representing David and Karen Johns, who live at 326 South Avenue. This is a little bit different than perhaps just your normal straight variance. And I know you have a lot of materials in front of you and a lot of different dates and a lot of different numbers. And I do want to go through both of these, if you'll just indulge me sort of in two different tranches. I've asked for two things here. I've asked for number one, that the board consider directing the town planner to sign the current building permit that's in front of her right now, based on the fact that there were some errors made when the prior town planner, Steve Kleppen, essentially approved this project. And it's to no fault of the town planner today or the town planner back then. It is completely falls on our applicant and our applicant surveyor and architect and builder and a number of different people who sort of dropped the ball on this particular matter. I got involved with it about 4 or 5 months ago, and it takes some real thought and process to go through actually what happened. So I'm just going to try and streamline what happened to begin with. And if there's additional questions that you all want to ask on that portion of it, that's fine. In the alternative, I'm going to be asking for a variance if the board decides that they just can't grant that request as far as us asking for the building permit to be signed based on a hardship. And our hardships, I will explain at the time, will be the topography of the particular piece of property and the fact that we were trying to enclose essentially a pool equipment so that it wouldn't have to be put on the property lines near other particular pieces of property. But I'm going to just start with sort of what happened in the easiest way that I can, streamline as much as possible. And the main fact that I want to get across to this board, which my clients have pounded into me for the last 4 months, is that the entire time that they were doing this project, they thought they were doing it all within the regulations. They thought they had permission to do what they were doing, and they never thought there was anything awry until they actually applied for this permit. I'm sorry, for the CO for this permit. And what happened was back in 2016, they were in the middle of doing interior renovations. They made a decision that they were going to start doing some exterior work on the outside of the property. At the time, their property was already over coverage. It was essentially at 2,730 square feet. At that time, though, none of the outside was counted as far as what the patios and decks were. And I know this board knows that there was back in 15, they made a new decision at that particular time to count certain patios, overhangs, et cetera. So that put this particular property over coverage, essentially 330 square feet more of coverage than what they actually thought they had. They thought they had 2,730 square feet. They asked the town planner saying, listen, we want to put out a little deck outside. We want to be able to enclose the pool equipment underneath that deck instead of placing it on a property line. And we'll do that all within the 2,730 square feet that we have. That number was wrong. That number should have been 2,956 square feet. And it just wasn't because they never counted the outdoor patio. So the town planner at the time approved that number of 2,730 square feet. Our client went about their business thinking that they were doing everything right. They go back out to resurvey it and they figure out that they're at 2,956 square feet, much higher than what was allowable from the town planner at the time. And then it comes to the town planner that we have today. And she's like, well, what are you talking about? You're way over the 2,730 square feet that Steve Kleppen actually approved. And that's when we figure out that we have these numerous mistakes in the surveyor. And he's provided documentation showing all his various mistakes as to how he didn't come up with the right number at the right time. But it's really important that I go through that and explain as much as possible, because it looks like our client just went out and did whatever the heck he wanted, when in fact he thought he was doing everything they thought they were doing everything within the regulations. If I could ask Lynn to just start the presentation. The first slide is on this. I don't know.
David, just give me a second to bring it up.
So the other part of the application, and Lynn and I have been through this before. I mean, it's to no fault of her office that, you know, we are where we are. She did exactly what she should have done, which was relying on a number that the town planner, Steve Kleppen, was given at the time. So, I mean, we have no issue with anything that's happened thus far. We're just trying to explain it and get to a point where, you know, that explanation is acceptable to not only the town planner, but of course to this commission as well. And in the event that they don't feel like they should be relying, you know, looking at this as a potential surveyor area and it should be just on the actual applicant, then we're going to be requesting a variance in sort of the second half of my presentation. If you could just go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so here's the property. It's on South Avenue. Many of you passed it a number of times. It's been upgraded over the last 3 or 4 years. The piece that we're talking about, the area actually that we're covering and putting in, is on the north-hand side of the property. Back a little bit. Yeah, it's back a little bit that way. Yeah, exactly, right about there. And it's about 108 square feet or so, somewhere around that particular. And what it does is it does 2 different things. It houses the pool equipment for the pool, and it also creates a deck off sort of their kitchen, which is on the southern side, kind of opens up right up there. Can you go to the next slide, please? So I was talking earlier about how did we get here? How did we get to this calculation? Why are we sitting at 2,910 square feet instead of 2,730 square feet, which is what was approved? And this is an explanation from the surveyor as to how he came up with all these particular numbers. And I just put that into the record for this board to look at and to go through. And, you know, I've sort of, I think the most important part is sort of the bolded language at the end. Which essentially says that, you know, how did I come up with the 2000 in 2018? How did I come up with this number? And he says, you know, it was 2,956 square feet. I took 100 square feet off because the terrace was grandfathered. I don't know why he did that, by the way. Honestly, he shouldn't have not taken that off either. The surveyor, he should have just said, no, I'm sitting at 2,910 square feet. So I don't know why he made the comment that he thinks that's grandfathered and nothing else is, but he did. And then he goes on to say he miscalculated something with 46 square feet in the deck. And in the end, when I have 2,956 square feet and I take off this 100 square feet of grandfathered patio, which I don't know how he gets to, and the 46, I'm down to 2,810 again. I have been over this with the surveyor no less than 8 or 9 times. I have tried to figure out how he got to these numbers. I have worked with this surveyor before. I have found him to be perfectly fine and do good work. I don't know why this has happened in this particular case, but that's where we are. If you go to the next slide, please. So here's what I'm sort of talking about as far as his 100 square feet of coverage. So if you look at the zoning chart, it shows you what's required, 2,522 on that left-hand corner. Then you look at the existing, and he has 2,910, which is where we are today. And then he puts proposed 2,810 square feet and as-built 2,810 square feet. And then he makes a note saying he's not counting 100 square feet of terrace use. So it's not 2,810 square feet, it's actually 2,910 square feet. And that's essentially what we had. That's what we thought we were working with at the time. And that's what we're requesting, either in the form of, yes, we understand all these mistakes were made. We think that you were working within the guidelines that you were given, and had you gone to Steve Kleppen and said, we have 2,910 square feet, he probably would have had the same answer. He would have said, yes, we know you're already over coverage. So long as you stay under that number, you can stay under that number. Can you go to the next slide, please? So to make matters worse, I've already messed up on this presentation because in 2016, that number should say 2,730 square feet. So that is my mistake. That should not say 2,738. But I don't have any excuse for that. So these are sort of the key points of what I just brought up. That's wrong. It's 2,730 square feet. That was the number that was approved. No one at the time, though, decided to count any patios or any sort of overhangs. So if you go to the next pair, which was 330 square feet. So if you go to the next point, please. I'm just indicating here, this is how we get to the 2,960. And in fact, we actually did reduce the 2,960 that we had to 2,910. And I just put down there again, the same sentence that I just read off the Brodigan letter as to how he came up with the 2,810. You go to the next slide, please. So this is what we're talking about, essentially. This is the extra square footage that was added, and underneath that is the pool equipment, and you can see it kind of comes out onto the deck here. That's what we're talking about as far as how much additional coverage is on this particular property. And once again, as I was saying before, we thought we were doing everything right to begin with. I'm not sure how the board has dealt with these matters in the past, and I won't, try to figure out what you should do about this. We did believe we were doing it all within the same, we had the approval to do what we were doing, and it's really important to our client that you all don't think that they just went out and did it, and said, hey, you know what, we can just do whatever we want, we'll ask for forgiveness later, because that's just not anywhere near the facts. Notwithstanding that, I've explained to him a number of times that, listen, just because your vendors do something, and you're ultimately the one that's responsible to the town and to the board, so you have to deal with it from this point forward. And if you have an issue with a surveyor or a builder, etc., you take that up with them at a later date. So I'll move through, Chairman Edmonds, now, I guess, with my variance request. Unless there's questions specifically about this, I'm more than happy to go through those as well, or if you just want to hear the whole thing. And
Okay, why don't we see if anyone has, well, first of all, I have a question. So they're not, homeowners not asking for, to build anything else. So this is just what is already there, and they're over from what is already built. Is that correct? So they're not looking to build anything else?
No, they're not looking to build anything else, but there's no way for the town planner to sign off on the actual building permit that's come through, because it has a number that's not accurate compared to what they've already agreed to at the time.
Do any board members have questions about this portion?
Not right now.
This is John Mahoney. I have a quick question, David.
Sure.
Was there, if you go back, and was the square footage essentially the same? I mean, if I understood you correctly, they swapped some square footage for the square footage that is in the deck now and covering the pool equipment. So we would have, no matter what, even if they hadn't built this deck, would we still be at the allegedly the 2910?
Yes. In fact, Mr. Mahoney, they're actually less than what they had. They were actually, it's about 50 feet more, and they did have to do other things to reduce the coverage. They actually raised the grade in certain areas so that some of the patios wouldn't count towards coverage. And so you'll see that a little bit in the back. Not that that's relevant per se, but the entire time that they're working on the project, they know the number they have to stay under. They just had the wrong number. So they were doing things knowing that they actually had to stay under a certain particular number.
So if net what ended up happening with this whole thing is that the amount of coverage was reduced, right? We have an error in calculation, but it wasn't as if not only was there an error, but the nonconformity increased. What I understand you're saying is the nonconformity decreased.
Yes, if we had to come in, I would have come in to this commission and said, we're actually reducing the nonconformity. It's at 2,960, but we're going to be at 2,910. I probably wouldn't have even had to come and see you, because generally those would have just been approved automatically by the town planner, much like Steve Kleppen actually approved a number that was higher at the time, 2,730. Because he's like, so long as you stay under that number, even though you're over, I'm okay. The problem is he had the wrong number.
Okay, thank you.
Rich? Okay, are we ready?
No, I'm fine. I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay.
Okay. So I think I'm just going to move into sort of our variance request. In the event that we can't get to the, this number. So one of the, I kind of have this a little bit out of order, but one of the hardships that we're bringing up is that this particular property in and of itself has not only a topography problem, but when you're trying to site pool equipment, you usually site them away from the house. They have to be away from a window. They have to be a certain distance from your house and a certain distance from a property line. One of the places that you would usually put is you try to put it somewhere towards the rear yard. In this particular case, we have not only a topography problem, it drops about 6 to 7 feet from the back of the property to the rear, but there's also a drainage basin in there so that you can't really put much in that particular area. If you go to the next slide, please. So this is what I'm talking about. There's the porch that we were talking about, and you'll also see sort of how that topography grade comes down. And where I took this picture is sort of standing where that drainage would have been, to put it in perspective. And that's kind of the most flat part of the property as you come down the hill. You'll also note, how much screening is on this property. I mean, the screening is incredible as far as providing both privacy for the Jans as well as the neighbors. And we have letters in the file from the neighbors that are on the other side of that screening, thanking the Johns actually for not putting the pool equipment in that area and supporting the particular application. Can you go to the next slide, please? This is just another view now from the top, sort of where that where the deck is, and you see how it kind of comes down. You see once again, the rear of the property also has some nice screening that's there. That neighbor as well on the east side of the property also has put a letter into the file indicating that they're in support of the application. Next slide, please. So this is sort of the other side, and it's showing that we really couldn't do much as far as pool equipment goes on this side as well, because once again, you have this large topography drop that comes down off this particular east side of the property. That's not right. The west side of the property. No, the south side of the property, sorry. Next slide, please. That's another area of sort of what we're talking about. That area is screened as well. Those are just the air conditioners units. And that's another picture of sort of where the pool equipment is sitting under. Next slide, please. This is from the front on the same side. You can see this is sort of the gate that leads in there. Once again, I'm just trying to indicate that there's heavy screening around this entire piece of property. Next slide, please. Same thing coming down that particular area. You can see the slope. There was no room to really put any sort of equipment in that area as well. Next slide, please. And then this is from the other side. And once again, you see the heavy screening on that particular side and, sort of the limited area to which you can actually put equipment. Next slide. And this is just, I took this in the spring. This is just showing some additional screening of the property. I mean, it's really from like the top deck, you really can't see much. And that combined with the fact that this pool equipment is actually underneath the deck, creates very little noise for any sort of neighbors in the area. Next slide. I think that might be it. Is that it, Lynn? That might be it. Okay.
Yes,
So-
that is it.
Okay. So from our variance, from the variance perspective, we're claiming that the hardship in this particular case is the topography on the property and the drainage on the property as far as where we could actually site any of this particular pool equipment. Also, I mean, we really got put over coverage based on the fact that that patio regulation came into effect, essentially putting 330 more square feet onto the property. And we're asking the board to, if they, can't get to a point where they just rely on the fact that we had put, the surveyor is saying that he made this mistake and that it should have been 2,956 at the time. Then we're requesting in lieu of that, a variance based on the fact that we have a topography problem in siting this equipment. We don't believe that it'll have any adverse effect on any of the neighbors based on the heavy screening on the property. And it's actually a better place to have since it's going to be covered and not as, doesn't put out as much noise. And I'm happy to answer any more questions. I know that was kind of a lot.
David, Luke Tashin speaking. So they're asking to move from 2,956 square feet of coverage to 2,910.
Correct.
So like 46 square feet less.
Correct.
John Mahoney, how do we get comfortable that the surveyor now has the calculation correct?
It's a fair question. He did send someone else out to do the work rather than himself the last time that he came out. I mean, I'm still relying on his seal and I'm still relying on the fact that he's signing his name to it. And that, in one respect, he has owned up to the number of mistakes that he's made over a period of 5 or 6 years, which of course, a lot of people run the other way and say, it's not my problem, that's not what happened. And I will say, in fairness to him, he's been responsive to me. I've asked him for a lot of information. He's given me that information. I question a lot of the things that he's done. I do know he's been practicing almost 40 years. And I actually used him on a project, a big project in New Canaan. I didn't use him personally, my client did, and we never had an issue with him. I don't know what happened in this with all these different variations. I mean, there were a lot of players involved. There were 2 different architects. There was a builder. There was a surveyor. They were trying to use a surveyor that had already done a survey on the property, thinking that would streamline the whole thing. But I just have to rely on the fact that he's signing it and he's taken ownership of it up to this point.
I guess so. I'm a little bothered that he's putting in on the as-built that it's 100 feet less,
I know.
right? I mean,
I
how do we not end up with somebody, if we accepted the survey, how do we not end up with somebody pulling it and saying the number is 2810?
Yeah, I think the only thing you can rely on is I had him change on the top left-hand corner under area that the square footage is 2,910.
Yeah,
I see that.
So, yeah, because I said the same thing to him. He tried to give us our first map at 2,810 with that little note on it. And I'm like, but that's not right. You can't just, the note, it has to be 2,910. It's like, oh, okay, I'll change the top part. I'm like, if you want to leave your note, go ahead and leave your note, but it has to show that it's 2,910, which is the same thing that I'm requesting from a variance perspective. So at least it's a confirmation, I think, to this board that in fact, this owner and this applicant is confirming this is what's on the property. And that variance will be recorded on the land record. So when title gets pulled for this particular project, you know, someone's going to read that and say, oh, it's 2,910, regardless of what this map says.
David,
that's-
Luke Tashton speaking. Is there a plan that shows the proposed work?
I think this is it. Really, what ends up happening is the work that was, like I said, the work that was done, they thought they were under coverage to begin with. So the only thing that they added, and there's a building permit, they added that on the north side, they added that covered patio, and that you can see that covered wood deck. I'm sorry, covered wood deck. And then they just started to recalculate the patios and stonework that were a part of the project. I mean, the pool was really the part of the project, but the pool didn't have to comply with any sort of more coverage because it was built at grade.
And there's no additional coverage is going to be added that's not shown on this plan?
Correct. This is
And-
it. I mean, we're done. This project's done. We were looking for a CO.
And what is he taking off on coverage?
So what he did was he has this weird note on the bottom of the zoning chart that says, and it's also in his letter, where he says that the coverage is 2009. Well, this one was 2009-56, but if you look down in the middle, actually, Lynn, if you go to like the third slide where the zoning chart's pulled up.
Is that the thing about the barbecue?
Yeah, but if you go the other way, please. Keep going. Right here, see, he shows the existing coverage at 2,910, but then he puts the proposed at 2,810 with a note on the bottom saying it doesn't include 100 square feet of terrace. And then I said to him, well, if you do that, you have to put on the main survey that's 2,910 because that's what's there. I don't understand the note, but he refused to take the note off. And I think that's because he had the note on other plans that he put in.
Wait, so the existing is 2,910 it shows here. And the
Correct.
proposed is 2,810. So I thought he was taking 46 square feet off. He's taking 100 square feet off?
No,
Yeah, but it's not, it's 2,910, Luke, because he has this weird thing that says 100 square feet of terrace isn't being used as the as-built, but it has to be. It has to be 2,910.
Can you scroll back up to the plan? Why isn't that stone terrace counted in the footprint? I mean, the coverage. On the bottom.
That's what it should be. That 100 square foot should be. That's what makes it 2,910 square feet.
But this says 2,910 not counting the terrace. That's what's
Oh,
creating
it's
confusion.
2,810, not counting the terrace. The note says 2,810, and it says we're not counting 100 square feet of the terrace, which is that 100 square feet. There's only 2,910 square feet on the property right now.
My concern is that what if that 2,910 doesn't count the terrace? Because that's the way I read this plan.
It
It says
says
terrace not used in coverage,
not used in
grandfathered. I don't know how you get grandfathered and it doesn't count towards coverage.
It doesn't. You're right. It doesn't. Counts towards coverage. That's why it's got to be 2,910.
But the way
And
this
that's why
plan
they-
is written, it says 2,910, and that doesn't count the terrace.
No, it's 2,810 because he puts down the existings is 2,910 on the middle column. And then he puts a note proposed 2,810 with a note on the 100 square feet.
Right.
no matter what in the application that we're making, we're asking for 2,910 square feet. We're not asking for 2,810, and he wouldn't remove that particular note. I don't know why. I talked to him numerous times about it. He thought it was important that it be put on there. But if you look at the building coverage, it says on the top hand corner, it's 2,910 square feet. That's the survey that was required, and it says that that's what's existing right now. I mean, if you wanted to make a condition that I come back with a survey that shows both the existing and proposed at 2,910 square feet with no note of the 100 square feet, I'm more than happy to agree to that.
And that's honestly where I'm going. I mean, I'd hate to have somebody spend the cost of a new survey, but I have a hard time with a survey that we all believe is wrong, and with a note also saying it's grandfathered up in the drawing itself. It just it just asks for a problem down the road, and we're trying to clear up problems right now, not leave them hanging.
I agree with that comment.
Could we, I mean, I'm looking at it, I don't, to start with, I don't see how we'd have the jurisdiction to order that Lynn sign this off. That first argument, I don't, I mean, I'm not sure under what authority we'd have that ability. I'm inclined regarding the variance route. And I'd like to, if there was a way we could move this forward tonight, it seems to make sense to me to move it forward, but I'm having trouble with that. So could we allow the variance on confirmation that, and condition the variance on an additional plan being filed with, Lynn, showing that the total coverage, including that stone terrace, is 2,910 square feet, as opposed to continuing this, having David come back and however long it takes to get another survey,
Yeah,
and then saying what I just said. I don't know if we can do that or not. Maybe Lynn could say that, answer that, but if nothing's going to be added to this, I just want to make sure that the coverage we're approving does not exceed 2,910 square feet, including that stone terrace.
It sounds like the board needs more clarity, David, about that.
I mean, that's acceptable to us. I mean, I think, like I said, I asked him to do that to begin with, and he said, no, we have to keep the note on there. But I completely agree with you, both as a zoning attorney and if I had to sit in your shoes, that you need to have the correct number on there, 2,910. If the board granted the variance saying, yeah, based on the fact that we're granting a variance for 2,910 square feet and that the survey is updated to reflect that and the notes taken off, I mean, that's completely acceptable to the applicant.
And that the stone terrace be included in the square footage count.
right.
Right. I understand.
Do they have a number on the front of their house?
326.
I'm
Yeah.
saying out at the street. I pulled in the driveway, but I wasn't sure if it was the right house, so I didn't start walking around.
I think it's on the stone wall.
Oh.
Luke.
Yes, it is. It's on the stone wall in front.
I think it's on the stone wall.
By the way, you'll see me on your Ring video
Yeah, me
walking around.
That's
I didn't
fine.
ring the doorbell, but
That's fine.
Yeah, David Johns is on if you had any specific questions for him as well, by the way.
There's no neighbors who oppose this. There's no one else here on this matter.
Yeah, is there anyone else that would like to speak about this matter, about this application? Anyone? I know the homeowner is here if he'd like to speak to it.
Yeah, I will just add that I think anything I'm about to say would be redundant to what David said, but we've tried to do everything within the letter of the law as we understood it, working with Steve Kleppen, working with Michael Smith. Paul Brodigan was the original surveyor that did the work. So we thought, let's go with the person that already did that. In retrospect, maybe that was a mistake, but the numbers now, all the questions you're asking are very good. My understanding is that the 2,910 square feet does include the terrace. We don't understand this 100 square foot. We actually reduced the size of the terrace. And my belief is that Mr. Brodigan is confusing the reduction of the size of the terrace with that action, but I'm not quite sure about that. And then we brought Louise Brooks in to finish the work, and because it had a little bit more of a modern look. But we were surprised when we finally went to go get the CO that the town records weren't consistent with the information that we had heard from our surveyor, and we thought we were being compliant all the way through, and solicited in advance, before we did any of this, our neighbors' approval for what we were doing, both within this, for the screening, also for the noise abatement on the pool equipment, and also because, as Mr. Rucci said, in the back there is a lot of drainage that we put in to avoid the neighbors having any drainage runoff. And so again, they were all supportive of all these actions, and so I apologize if all this is redundant, but I just want to make sure that this committee knows that my wife and I try to do everything we can all the way through to be compliant. And now we're just trying to reconcile some of the numbers that you've heard here today. And David Rucci's helped us do that. We're trying to work with the new town planner, Lynn, and she's inherited this. Steve Kleppen, as you know, is no longer here. So we're trying to make sure that we can ultimately, the final analysis is we work to reduce the square footage and make sure that that's good for all our neighbors. And we hope that this committee will, however we get there, approve this because again, there's no other additional work we're looking for. This is all done and final, and we're just trying to make sure we get all the information necessary to answer any of the questions that you all would have.
Thank you. We really appreciate that. And I can speak for myself that I, understand that you've gone through every length to try to do this the right way. And it's just seems like it's not anything that you've done. It's just something that happens sometimes, and we'll just have to work through it. So does the board want to go into a business session so that we can figure out next steps, or
Laura, it's Rich Carey. I just have one question. So back when Steve Kleppen was involved and, it was communicated, that wrong number was communicated to Steve, if someone would have went back and compared it to the town records at that time, I'm not saying that's what should have happened, the discrepancy would have been found back then, right?
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Carey, that's exactly what should have happened, is that as soon as they figured out that they had the wrong number, they should have gone back to Steve. I mean, I do think there was a change in architects. There was, and David Johns may be able to give it a little more. I mean, I've spoken with him about it, so I mean, I'll paraphrase what he told me. But yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, someone should have corrected it at that time, and we wouldn't even be here. I mean,
Right. Okay.
If they corrected that time, Steve would have said, my guess is Steve would have said, yeah, okay, if that was the number and you were wrong, fine, then you can't go over that number.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
This is Lynn Brooks Alvey. So I just want to make a note. Luke said it earlier, but he's correct. You can't I guess order me to sign off on the CO, because as the ZBA you can only hear an appeal of an order that I make. And I've just simply said that I won't sign the CO until the documents are match with the building coverage that was determined by the prior planner. That could be the max. So you have to consider it as a variance of the building coverage. And then you have to find a hardship related to the land. And so you have to make a determination of whether there's a hardship with respect to the land.
I'm all set voting on this if we want to move into business session. My concern is that if people aren't gonna go the variance route and allow a subsequent plan to be filed, we'd have to allow David to continue it now. Like, I don't know if you can continue it once you move into business session.
Right, well, that's what I'm asking, like, do we, so
I mean,
do you, I guess we, what, do you want to go, do you want to do it, David? I guess it might, is it up to David? Do you want to do it, either continue it or, and then go the Lynn route, or do you want to go through the variance route? I mean,
no, I think I'll go through the variance route
okay,
and just request that the variance be granted on 2,910 square feet, based on the fact that we have a topography issue in the rear as to where we could actually site this particular equipment. We think that it fits in with the neighborhood as far as the screening that's there today. And that with the understanding that before a final sign off, a map is produced to Lynn confirming that it's 2,910 square feet, both existing and proposed. Because
okay.
that's where the disconnect is that one says 2810 and one says 2910. That needs to both say 2910. And that note should likely be removed, the note about the 100 square feet.
And you would state that your hardship would be because of the topography. Is that what you state? If that, is that what you're saying?
The topography, I think, the main one. I mean, obviously we had a change in regulation. I know we've talked about that in the past as to how that works, but without that change, you know, you probably wouldn't have had to count 330 square feet of additional patio and overhang space, because that regulation came into effect afterwards. But I think topography is the main one, and I think that makes sense in this particular case, based on the fact that there really is that in the drainage, the system that already has the drainage in it. There's not really anywhere else you can put this equipment. I mean, unless you put it in like the middle of the backyard, but I mean, that's.
And
not
then
true.
that drainage.
There was actually a problem with the piping because we have a catchment there so that the neighbors wouldn't have runoff, and we had to route the piping to this other side of the house. So that was part of the fields that we understood we couldn't put the pool equipment in where the drainage area is.
Okay, all right. Is the board ready to go into the business section? Jessica, do you have any questions? Cynthia?
So just a comment. It would be preferable from a staff perspective that the map is produced prior to you closing the matter, and everything is clarified before, and it's not a condition after. Because what happens, because just as a question, what will happen if they cannot produce a map and there is no sign off, because the variance gets recorded on the land records?
But isn't that a condition of the variance? It can't be recorded if you haven't seen the map.
But the variance is recorded after we have we recorded after the approval, and then we notice it. We offer a legal decision. We send out a legal notice of the decision of the vote of the board.
So that would mean we would need to continue it.
That would be the preference of staff, to have everything clarified beforehand. There have been so many maps, and each map should ideally have calculated the building coverage with respect to the New Canaan zoning regulations in effect at the time each map was created, which could add to why there's differences, because there were changes into what counts. A terrace is considered a structure in the current regulations by definition, and it's counted in building coverage once it's over a certain height.
Isn't it more ministerial? Because in this particular case, you have a map that says 2,910 square feet of coverage. You have it listed in two separate places. All you have is a note that's confusing on the particular map. There's not going to be a change in that. I mean, that seems to wait another month.
Come out and remeasure, but you're saying they're not going to come out and remeasure and redo the survey. They're just going to change. They're going to clarify, change it.
Yeah, that's what I would be planning on doing. And you know, this matters was, you know, I mean, this matter's already been put off a month. So if I can avoid that, I would rather do that if possible. But of course, it's up to the board. I'm not going to, have the board do anything they're not comfortable doing. But it seems like it's really just an error. It's not even an error. It's just confusing in the end as to how it's being calculated, because it says it's 2,910 square feet in two different places. And then it says, oh, 2,810, because I'm not counting 100 square feet of coverage.
And there's that note with the arrow against the terrace,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So there are two notes that need to be deleted. One down below the zoning grid, if that's what it's called, and one on the drawing itself. And then all the square footage should say 2,910.
Well,
Luke
how,
Cashin speaking. My understanding though is what David said, the surveyor is not going to remove those. So we'd have to go to another surveyor, and I assume that other surveyor would go out and calculate it. Like, I don't think they're just going to take that plan and erase those two notes, because the surveyor already told David he wouldn't.
Well, I will go back to the surveyor and tell him that this is going to be a requirement and ask him why he won't remove it.
I thought you already asked him that. I thought you already had this discussion with him.
I asked, yes, and he said, well, can I just do this? And I said, that's fine, so long as you have 2,910 square feet there, that's fine if you leave the note on there. So I didn't press him enough. I got him to move to 2,910 square feet. Maybe it's not fair to say he wouldn't remove it. He just wanted to keep his note. Because he initially had on the top loop 2,810 square feet on that left-hand column. And he had the note down below. And that's when I said, you have to change it to 2010. That's what's there.
Lynn, do you have like software in your computer that like calculates the square footage so we could figure out what it actually is?
No, but if it doesn't include the terrace, the 100 square feet of the terrace, then we're talking that the actual building coverage is 3,010. And the note references the fact that it was used in the as-built prior to the proposed pool permit application, and the prior as-built was dated 12/6/2004, and that's the one that Steve Kleppen made his handwritten notes on.
I'm sorry. So
Whatever the board wants to do.
Lynn, I'm sorry. Now, where's the 3,000 come from?
Well, if they don't, if the note as written, says final as-built coverage does not include 100 square feet of terrace used in the as-built prior to the proposed pool, then that means that 2910 does not include an additional 100 square feet of coverage that's on the property, which would mean that the real total is 3,010.
But the final as-built column had 2810 in it. So 2810 plus 100 feet gets either the 2910, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, sorry. It's late.
Yes. But
I'm feeling, this is just me and the board, we could talk about this some more, but my thought is that I don't have a problem with granting the variance. I feel like it would have no impact. I think they've gone to great lengths to screen and neighbors and drainage, and I'm fine with the hardship of the topography. So I would be fine with granting the variance if we had a map that we could all agree on that was settled. So my thought is to continue it. Let's see a map that we're all comfortable with the numbers, and then it would just be a very simple process. That's where I am right now. Does any other board members want to talk that through?
Yeah, I find the plan, like I said, confusing. Because it looks like proposed 2,810, so it looks like, do we just approve 2,810? Because we approved 2,910, it looks like we're approving another 100 square feet from what's there. And then at the same time, I don't know if that stone terrace is counted in the 2,810 or not. I don't know. I'm on the same path with seeing this as a hardship. I don't think the mistakes by the surveyor creates a hardship. I do think there's hardships related to the property.
Right. So would you move along with the variance without the change of the map,
It
or?
sounds like we can't do that. So it sounds like, it sounds to me, based on what Lynn said, like the best recourse would be for David to continue this till next month. And in the meantime, I guess file an updated plan. My concern being that it might take more than a month if
Right.
they have to get another surveyor.
What do you think, Jessica?
I was thinking the same thing as Luke. To me, it seems that with the challenges of the maps right now and the multiple attempts to get clarity from the surveyor, that we might find that the number is still maybe not even the one that's being proposed. So I think it would be best to probably have it be continued so that there's no conflict on our end, and that we're not somehow granting a larger variance than maybe is needed as well. I certainly have empathy for the homeowners in the situation. I agree as well. I don't think we have any challenges with the geographic lot, the topography, and that as a hardship. It certainly seems to be well established. So I do feel some sympathy that there might be a delay here, but I think it's the best thing for the town and the record keeping.
But I think with you know, 3 of the board members expressing that concern, that, you know, we obviously would not object to it being continued at this point.
Okay.
Lynn, just as a process question, are you telling me that the recordation in the land records occurs upon the vote of this board rather than the vote and clearing any conditions?
We typically record it after the vote, and once it's approved, and the conditions get recorded as part of the variance. So yeah, it would just process wise, it's going to be, if they can't ever produce a map, they're gonna have a variance, but they don't have a map to match it.
But they wouldn't have, this is Rich character, but they wouldn't have the variance, right? Because the conditions were not met.
No, they'd have the variance. It's just the conditions in the variance would be met. Because once the variance is issued, it gets recorded, and there's only so many days to appeal it.
Yeah.
That's the issue I think Linton's saying.
No, so even if there's a condition to the variance, if the condition is not met, it doesn't get revoked. Once it's recorded, it's permanent.
Yeah,
I
and
think-
it runs with the land, so.
Okay, no, then I do have, you know, I'm sympathetic that they would have to come back, and it's probably going to be longer than a month given today's market. But you know, I don't think we have a choice, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say I don't agree with that position, but I'm certainly willing. I mean, Lynn doesn't have to record the document. If she's not satisfied the condition wasn't met, why would she go record the document? Like, you shouldn't do that anyway. So, I mean, that's just practical. If your condition hasn't met, why would you go record the document? So, I mean, I don't want to get into an argument about it. It's just, I don't agree with the fact that just because the variance is done, you just run and record it at the land records. If the condition is not met, that is not correct or accurate. But nonetheless, we're more than willing to continue this until we get a map that is acceptable to this commission.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with where David is, honestly. To me, it's a hole in our process where we would have a condition that is really a condition precedent to the granting of the variance, and we can't hold up recording it until that condition is satisfied. And the implication is that the board and the applicant are spending time, and in the applicant's case, money with David seemingly unnecessarily. I mean, they have to fill the condition. I'll go along with the majority there, but I think from a process standpoint, it doesn't make sense that we just automatically file unless there's some legal reason we have to. But in this case, it doesn't make sense to me that we would do it. We'd wait until we got a survey that satisfied the requirements and move forward.
Okay, well, this is Rich, Carey, too. Lynn, can you wait and to file it? I mean, if you don't have to file it until you get the surveyor, then don't file it. Just, is that good? Can that happen?
Rich, but what are we gonna do? Grant the variance and say it takes 6 months? She doesn't record it for 6 months? I don't think it works that way. I think it's the variance gets granted, it's recorded, and that's just a question of whether or not the conditions in the variance are met.
Well, that's the question. Does it have to be recorded? And
But we have to notice the decision 15 days after the decision's made.
okay,
And then the 15 days starts an appeal period. So
okay,
you have to appeal it. So if you don't file the variance, I would imagine it's a procedural defect. I mean, I'd have to seek guidance from town council on that one, but there's a specific timeline that triggers other actions.
Yeah, and I think that, in our past, when we have put conditions on a variance, they've been not as impactful, if you will, as these, maybe like as a map. I mean, that's a big deal. Like, we ask for screening or, other conditions that to me don't impact the granting of the variance as much as, we're talking about the meat and bones of the variance, which is the coverage. So I just would feel better if we had a map that everyone was in agreement with, that was, but we were all on the same page with it and the numbers were where we all were happy with. Anybody else?
Madam Chairman, so if you decide to continue it, we just need an extension from the applicant.
All right, that's up to date. I mean, anyone else have a thought on this?
Doesn't David have to request a continuance?
Yeah,
Yes, I requested continuance. I'll grant the extension.
okay. So the procedurally, so are we saying, so the variance is in a continuation until you will come up with a map?
Right, you're just leaving the hearing open
Yeah.
Yep.
until we come back with the map.
Yeah, but I think can we give David, are you clear on what needs to be done? I'd hate to have a continuance and then us talk about it further.
Well, I mean, the first thing I'm going to do is try to get confirmation from Brodigan, who's done this map so far, that the property is accurately at 2,910 square feet, and they can produce a map of even date indicating that. If he's unable or unwilling to do that, I'll have to get another surveyor.
And at the 2,910 square feet includes the patio that he says doesn't count.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just going to be today. So whatever's there, it's there. It doesn't matter what's grandfathered, what's not grandfathered. It is what it is today.
Correct,
I
it's like an
mean,
as-built we want.
I have no problem with the variance. Like, I would grant the variance without a question. I'm fine with that.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will go on to the next matter, which is 100 Orchard Lane. Zoning variance upon application of David Rucci, Lambert, Tui, and Rucci, authorized agent for Peter and Rowena Bergman's owner, for a variance of sections 3.5.E.3 and 3.4.B.4 to allow for pool equipment to be sited on an existing concrete pad 5 feet from the side yard setback in lieu of the 8 feet. Said concrete pad location is allowable based on a 2015 variance in the A zone, map J, block 131, lot H22. Okay,
Okay, yeah, sorry, me again. So, this
Oh, I'm
one.
sorry. I'm sorry. We're going to have Rich Carey is going to be seated for this one.
Okay, thank you.
So this is an old piece of property over on Orchard Drive. And the chairman has already indicated that back in 15, we had a concrete pad with an old oil tank. And if Lynn could pull up the survey, that would be great. 2015, we had an old oil tank. Not an old tank, a tank that was moved from the inside the garage to essentially where you're seeing the proposed pool location there now. And the reason we have to come in for a variance today is because that tank permission was 5 feet from the side yard line. This new pool equipment is actually 4.5 feet from the sideline. It is lower in height than the actual oil tank, and there, you'll see there's a picture of the storage tank as well. But while it fits on that concrete pad, it's actually a little bit wider, so it does go over into this fence closer to the side yard line. You'll see this property is challenged in a number of ways. It has, and some of you may know this, so this is the Orchard property where you can sort of cut through from Orchard all the way up to like South Avenue. There's that path that runs through it. And that's sort of on the westerly side of the property. It's also traversed by both a stormwater drain and a sanitary sewer easement. So the house was sort of sited all the way to the eastern part of the property line. See that there's not a heck of a lot of area to really put things other than on the side. So they can't put the pool equipment anywhere over on that western side, or obviously in the rear of the property. So when they talked to their pool people, they said, listen, why don't you try to put it on the same concrete pad that you have there? That would make the most sense. That's where the wires are coming in. That's where all the electrical comes in, et cetera. And now with gas coming to this area, they're actually not going to need the oil tank per se anymore. So they can remove that oil tank and swap out this particular equipment for it. Their hardship remains the same in the sense of where they can locate various mechanical tanks or equipment, as was in 2015 when that particular variance was granted. I think if you go to the next, and they're having it's a small pool in the back, about 14 by 14. There's not any zoning issues with that per se. It's just the mechanical equipment. If you go to the next, I think there might be a picture of the storage tank. So that's the way sort of it looks today. The fencing, obviously you can't see anything from the street in this particular case, nor from the neighbor. There's a letter in the file from the neighbor most affected on the other side of the fence, Todd Sell, saying that it's fine. He has no issue with placing the equipment there. And you see it's very well screened from any and all other property owners. I mean, no one's going to ever see it in this particular case. And the noise itself is not as much a big deal because on the cell side of the property, that's not really their living space area on that area. So we're requesting that the commission essentially allow us to swap out these two particular mechanicals, one a storage tank for the pool equipment. And as I said, it's while it's a little bit closer, about 6 inches closer to the fence, it's actually lower in height than what's there today. The hardship is the location of the home, the fact that they're encumbered by both stormwater and sewer easements on the other side of the property. And it's much more convenient in the sense that all their utilities, and you can see sort of, if you look over the other side of the fence, you can see sort of the utility pole right there. That's where it would come in rather than trying to go across the entire property to get the mechanicals anywhere else.
David, can you scroll back up to the plan? For some
Yep.
reason it didn't print for me. So why can't, Luke Tasman speaking, so why can't it be placed to the south of the house or to the west of the house?
Well, this can't come back to the south of the house because that's where a window is. You can't have your equipment within like it's got to be 5 feet away from a window on the south side of the property. And then on the other side of the property, you have to stay a certain amount of feet away from the stormwater drain and the sewer drain. And this property just seems like, this just seems like you're swapping out one sort of mechanical / storage tank for another, and you already have a concrete pad there anyway. That's allowed to be there, it's legal, it's there on a variance anyway. So it seemed like the path of least resistance as far as not disturbing any other parts of the property, not putting mechanical equipment in the front yard. The entrance to the property is right where that 1.5 story frame house sort of notation is. So you wouldn't really want to put pool equipment there or in the middle of your yard. And then there's a patio in the back right now that you really wouldn't want to, there's really just not a lot of spots for it.
But if you look at the proposed fence,
Yes.
it looks like there's a huge portion of that that's outside of the easement for the storm water sewer. Like, why can't it go behind the proposed fence? Because then it's complying with all the setbacks.
Well, that is where a lot of their lawn is on this property. A lot of their, living spaces for that particular property. There's a patio right there too. So you'd actually really have to put it more in the middle, almost under where the PROP is of proposed fence, because you'd have to move it further back. So you're sort of cutting off your area. I don't know how close I can get it to that stormwater drain and away from the patio. And other than the fact that it's 6 inches closer to the fence, you probably could have put it there as of right, because you already have the location approved for that. I would have just gone in and asked Lynn to sign off on it.
How many square feet's the footprint of the oil tank? I think you had that somewhere.
Let's see. Let me ask the applicant if they're online. Peter, are you online?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Do you remember what the square footage is of the storage tank versus the the pool equipment?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, but it's pretty close to 3 feet wide by 7 feet long, and I believe the area needed for the pool equipment is 3.5 feet wide by 7 feet long.
So it's still that 6 inches, Luke.
I was thinking that if you're reducing the footprint, then I don't think you'd need a hardship. Just making it more conforming, maybe.
The only thing we're reducing is the height.
So the cubic feet of the non-conformity is probably being reduced. I think it's gonna be hard to show that that's not possible to put, assuming a pool is a necessary use of a property, which is the first carve out for a variance, I guess. Then we get on to the second question of, is there somewhere else they can put it on? And that's kind of where I think it's a little difficult. I mean, your preference for not having a yard, I don't think that creates a hardship per se. But if you're making it more compliant, then you don't have to show your hardship.
But you don't think that it would impact the neighbors more if it were somewhere else, Luke? Like, because here it's, it's hidden, it's screened.
It's going to be hidden and screened if it's behind that fence they're proposing too, in the middle of their property. And then it's not the noise and stuff near other properties, things like that. Like it's not like there's the easement for the stormwater or something that makes it, or topography or some other reason that prevents construction in the area.
There are easements on the
But
property.
they're way to the west of there. They're putting a fence over that. They can.
Well, we have to have a fence. We have to have a fence for the pool.
Well, yeah, but not across the whole yard, just around the pool. I'm saying that the fence would I can't think of the term right now, but like so it's not as observable from the neighboring properties anyways.
Well, we
I just
also
don't see the reason why it can't, why there's something related to the land that makes it impossible to place it on the westerly side of the house.
Well,
Well, we'd
there's
also have,
already a pad there. There's already, they're not, there's already a pad there. There's a concrete pad there.
Yeah, but they're
that-
taking that concrete pad out and putting a bigger concrete pad in.
I don't think so.
No,
No,
Yeah, because there's a 3 foot by 7 foot concrete pad and they're taking out the 3 foot by 7 foot concrete pad and putting in a 3.5 by 7 foot concrete pad.
actually, that's not right. We're using the same.
they're
concrete
using the
pad
same
for-
pad.
For the pad. And also, you know, we'd also have a lot more disturbance on this particular piece of property if we had to bring in all the electricity, you know, from across the, you know, from where the driveway is now to the location that you're proposing. It's gonna have to come across that yard as well.
Well, no, it'd come through the house and then out the southwest corner somewhere.
Oh, that's true. You might be able to do it that way too.
I just don't see a hardship related to it. I mean, maybe I'm,
Well, I mean, the hardships, there's nothing different than the hardship that was for the tank in the past.
well, the hardship for the tank, I thought, was that there was nowhere else to put it because the oil lines had to go into near the furnace. You know, so there was a hardship because you can't run an oil tank 40 feet through your house, an oil line.
That tank was actually in the past in the garage.
Yeah, and they
it out.
moved it out of the garage. They need to have it in the same area. I thought that
No,
was.
my, I seem to recall the variance that we granted because I think they could have put the tank on the front of the house, near where the door was to the garage. And we all thought that that was way more objectionable than having, you know, it in the side yard setback.
That was it. And by the way, that was a different applicant. That's not.
Yes, different applicant. I'm going back to the 2015. I'm dating myself, but I seem to recall we were, you know, there was another place they could put the tank, but everybody agreed at the time this was the preferable location.
And I thought that issue was related to the existing tank being in the garage. They needed to put a new tank in approximate location, the new one. I mean, the new tank in the approximate location, of the old one, which would have been either in front of the house or behind this fence. So we granted that. I don't think there's no existing thing you're trying to service from this new pool. So I don't see how that argument has merit. I don't see a reason why it can't be put behind that fence, behind the proposed fence.
David, I seem to recall that you have to stay a certain amount away from the storm drain.
Yes, I believe that you have to be at least 10 feet away from any town easement. Lynn can correct me on that if I'm wrong. So, and I don't know, and it may be more than that in this particular case, because on each side, there's the easement in and of itself has its own buffer, and then you have to stay an extra 10 feet away from it. So technically, you could be looking at, you know, depending on what the easement actually says for the stormwater location, it could be 5 feet on either side of the, it's usually 5 feet on either side of the drain, and then you have to stay 10 feet away from it. So essentially, you'd be looking at going.
It's like in the middle of the yard, isn't it?
Probably somewhere in the middle of between the stormwater drain and the patio. Yes.
So,
I mean-
so this is Lynbrook Avenue. There is a distance, 3.4 B4 D says that it has to be 50 feet from any public or private roadway or easement. So there's a distance from the street and also a distance from the easements.
15 or 50?
50, I'm sorry.
So that would then actually take it out of, that basically puts it into the patio. Just by eyeballing 110 feet on the top.
So that makes it, they can't put it anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, the whole lot is only 110 feet wide, so.
And does that rule apply to fences too, Lynn, or just pool equipment?
No, it's pool equipment. So just, I'll read it for you. Section 3.4 B4, number D says that any swimming pool, deck, patio, mechanical equipment, filtration equipment, and storage tanks or containers shall be visually screened and shall not be located within the yard setback required for accessory buildings and shall be located more than 50 feet from any public or private roadway or easement. So there's a variance already for the concrete pad for what was the propane, equipment that was located there. They're proposing to put it where the old equipment was.
We don't have regular sized plans anymore. Do you have a plan so you can scale it to see if the 50 feet, how far 50 feet from that sanitary sewer easement goes?
Well, you can kind of eyeball it, Luke, because you see across the top, the site itself is 110 feet wide. So it's basically half the width of the site is 50 feet.
Yeah, which makes it look like it could be placed off that southwesterly corner of the house. Like, Lynn, do you have a full-size plan?
I don't have a full-size plan and I'm not in the office.
David, do you have a full-size plan?
But they would, but I mean, I noted it in the memo. I mean, it's not called out by the surveyor. Usually we would rely on the surveyor calling out the distance.
Well, if you want, we can come back with that number.
David, don't you have a plan there you can check?
Yeah, I do.
Let's just ruler it.
Yep, I have that. Equals 20. So from if you just go along proposed fence and you go from where the line is for the sewer easement to the edge of the house, that's only 40 feet.
Okay, so I think there's nowhere else they can put this.
Yeah.
That's only
Okay.
40 feet.
Okay, is there anyone any more discussion, any more questions?
Rich Carey too. I don't have any more questions.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this variance?
If there's anyone here that wants to speak, could you just raise your icon hand so we at least can see on the screen that you want to speak? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Madam Chair.
That's okay.
Okay, Bethany.
Is there anyone that would like to speak?
Yes.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
We just want to make sure that the children who are passing by the path to go to South School from Orchard Drive, they are not affected or anything by this.
Can you speak? Can you say your name, please? Are you a neighbor?
We are Nitin and Shobha Parekh.
Okay.
We are backside of the 100 Orchard Drive. And
Okay.
everybody to remain safe. That's all that our intention, and that the pool equipment will not make too much noise.
Okay. Mr. Bergman, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. And am I pronouncing your name right? Is it Shobha?
Yes.
Hi, nice to meet you. I
Nice to
haven't
meet you too. Yeah. We waved sometime while passing by. Yeah.
I know. So there will be a fence, along the part of the pathway there. So definitely the kids cannot get through there at all.
That's what
And
we
the
want
pool
them to
equipment
be safe.
But does the fence
ahead.
block the pathway?
No.
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 So where's this? Can you pull the plan back up?
Thank you, Mr. Bergman.
You're welcome, Shobha.
Thank you.
So Luke, basically the pathway is almost along where it says Robert M. Donaldson and Susan Donaldson. It's literally on the other side of that sewer easement.
So it's not on their property.
I don't think it is.
Technically it is. Technically it is, but it's about a 3-foot path right to the west of that property line.
Is there an easement for this, or what is this path?
No,
It's just where kids walk?
correct.
You know what? It's been a path that's been there. I mean, certainly before I owned the house, and according to my plumber who's lived here his whole life, Mr. Reddy, he said that path has been there, for 50 plus years.
Forever.
So you know, it's just a little cut through that people use, so the rest of the neighborhoods can kind of get to South School a little easier.
Yes, we own that property for last 36 years and it has always been there.
And that has been there for many, many years before.
Many years before that.
And this fence around the pool is noted right now that some of it is off your property. Is the new fence gonna all be moved onto your property?
Oh, could you just highlight where that is?
On the southerly side. I mean, it sounds like it's important that there be, you know, fencing around this pool.
I think that's an
Yeah, so
existing
that's
fence.
an existing fence, and that's my neighbor's fence, actually. It's on their property.
So your fence is gonna connect to that fence, though. There's gonna be,
Yeah, the only fence that I have proposing is the one that comes off the corner of my house and then kind of closes off along the sewer easement where the cursor is going, and then it stops right there. That's it. It connects to the existing fence.
so your
Okay.
fence connects to the existing one, to your neighbor's fence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and just a point of clarity. So what's going to happen is that when he goes for his permit, Brian Platts is going to say, you need to get an agreement from your neighbor that you can hook up to that fence. And if not, you got to build your own fence. But most of the time, it's a matter, it's a formality. The neighbors will allow it, because if not, they don't want to see fence on a fence, right? You don't want to see him have to put a fence right up in front of your fence. So that's what we've done in the past.
Hi, this is Peter again. If you don't mind, I just wanted to clarify a little bit of something. If you see where the mouse is currently on the map, it's actually right about there. We actually have our own fence that's on our property. And I know it seems a little weird, but that fence to the right is all the neighbors. It's a plastic white fence. They stopped it at the edge of their property line, and then we continued with our fence from there. So we technically are connecting to our own fence.
Okay, well, I think that helps the neighbor maybe feel a little bit better about, you know, it being safe for the path. So if there's not any more comments, I think we'll go into our business session and vote on this variance. Any more comments? Mr. Rucci, anything last bit?
No, thank you.
Okay, we
you.
are in our business session. Any discussion from the board?
This is Rich Carey too. I'm inclined to approve the variance, given that it doesn't seem like there's any other place where it can go on the property. We're talking about the pad is going to be the same. Yeah, so I'm inclined to be positive on the variance.
John?
I would agree. The pad's already there, so I don't think it's a big ask. It's lower, it's well screened. The neighbor who is most impacted, and maybe the only person impacted other than the applicant, is in favor of it.
Right.
So.
And we have a letter from the easterly neighbor, right?
Yes. Jess?
That is correct.
I agree.
Pugsdale has one.
Yeah, I agree with John and Rich as well. And I appreciate Luke's scrutiny of, I would have the same kind of question about, there seemed to be a big yard space and could it be moved? But I feel pretty reassured that unfortunately this lot has a lot of restrictions on it. And I think there is, enough grounds to state that there's a hardship where they really should use the existing place. And it seems to be also kind of the least obtrusive spot as far as the neighbors in the surrounding region.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
I move that we grant the variance as submitted, with the hardship being the multiple easements running across the property.
Rich Carey, 2 seconds, and in addition, there's no place else that practically makes sense where to put the equipment. So I'm voting in favor.
I'd move that we amend that to, as grounds that it also, be making the property more compliant. Zoning. It's reducing the volume in the setback, so I think it's falls within making it more compliant.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Yep, me too.
Okay, Rich, will you start the vote?
Yes, Rich Carey, 2 in favor. I vote yes.
John,
Mahoney in favor.
Jessica,
Pardon, in favor?
Luke,
Cash in favor?
Edmonds in favor. Okay, your variance is granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Okay, we'll move on to our third application for the evening. It's 26 Kimberly Place.
Yes.
Zoning variance upon application of David and Kristen Costello, owners for a variance of section 3.5.e.2 and 3.5.f.5 to allow part of the second floor addition to be built within the 15 feet side yard setback at 10.9 and allow the second floor addition side yard building height to be 21.8 in lieu of 20 within the 15 to 25 foot side yard setback in the A residence zone, map L, block 20, lot 835. Who is here to speak for this variance, for this application?
Hi, there. I'm Kristen Costello. This is our architect, Alan. We are asking for a variance. Our home was built in 1949 and it's currently non-conforming on that south side of the property, where we are seeking to construct an addition over the existing garage to allow more efficient use of the current footprint of our home by constructing the bonus room, a bedroom and a bathroom over that garage space. It was designed, to keep in character with the other homes on Kimberly Place. And it was designed such that if the house did sit within the setbacks, it would be in compliance. We believe that the addition as it's designed is a respectful integration into the original structure and, as I said earlier, keeps in character with the other homes on Kimberly Place. We do have a privacy hedge on that side that runs the length of the side yard with our neighbor. We sent the letters out to all of our neighbors within 100 feet. We spoke to them, a number of them, and have heard only positive feedback and support for it. The hardship is really the location of the house, which was built prior to the current zoning regulations. And this addition allows us to get more usable square footage out of our home using the current footprint.
Did they hear?
I hope so.
So you're asking for this is a height variance? Is that what I'm?
It's actually twofold. Because we are within the 15-foot setback, we're asking for a variance to do a vertical addition for that. And then the addition would then make the 15 to 25-foot setback non-compliant. So we're asking for a variance for that. I think that's.
This is Rich Carey, too. Laura, have you appointed? You need to appoint someone.
Oh, Okay, let's have Cynthia sit for this one,
Okay. And
but please comment, Rich.
yes, so yeah, just a question on the height. There was no way to, lower the height by 1.5 feet so that you don't have to ask the variance on the height side. That's a,
I think there was a mistake on the application or the site plan. The height actually does conform. The overall height is actually 21'2", and the mean height is 18 feet within that
Okay.
15 to 25. So the height works. It's just that now with going vertically, the floor area is now considered a 2-story within that
Right.
25. So we
So-
need variance for that.
So there's really only one variance needed?
Well, we are going above the area that is within the first 15 feet. So we need to get the variance for that as well.
Well, I'm sorry then, just to be clear. You're going vertical within the first 15 feet, right?
Correct?
So isn't that one variance?
That would be one variance, and then the additional would be because of the additional floor area within the 15 to 25 makes that area a 2-story space.
But you're under the height.
I am under the height, but I am over on the square footage on the floor area. Because it can only be a 1.5-story addition within the 15 to 25, but we are over that.
what is that?
Lynn, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the regulation. And F5, 3.5 F5, I don't see where it has the 1.5 story. Right, it has a height limit of foot limitation, not a 1.5 story. So I guess what I'm asking is you may only need one variance.
So you are correct, Mr. Mahoney. The variance they need is the height. They're going to be 21.8 in lieu of 20. The building is going to be attached to the existing principal structure. So they're allowed to have the house the structure can be up to 2.5 stories, but they still have to build the 2.5 stories within the required dimensional heights that are set out. And then they have the additional restriction because of the zoning district. They're in the A residence zone, that they have to maintain a side yard height that's more restrictive than what the regular principal height if they were behind that setback line.
Yeah, so in the A residence zone, the building height is 20 feet, right? From 15 to 25 feet. And what I just heard was we were below that on the.
The plan, the site plan shows incorrect heights. The elevations on sheet A3 shows the actual proposed heights. So you can see the overall total height is at 22'1" within that 15 to 20 foot or 25 feet. So, and then the mean height is at 18 where the maximum is 20.
So Lynn, if this is in fact right, then do we need the height variance?
So they are, no, this is this isn't the 15 feet. Okay.
Within the 15 to 25, I can only go 25 foot max with a
Yep.
20 foot median. and it can only be a 1.5 story.
No,
There's
there's
a-
no 1.5 story restriction.
Are you sure?
The 1.5 story restriction is for an accessory structure. All accessory structures can only be 1.5 stories. When this addition is attached to your principal structure, so it follows the rules for principal structure. You can go to 2.5 stories, but you have the restriction of, you have a height restriction within the A residence zone, and then you have an additional height restriction within the 15 to 25 feet of, from the property line that has a further height restriction. So that's the one you're looking at.
Okay, I was under the assumption that there was certain height restrictions and floor area restrictions. But if it's just a height restriction, then no, we do not need a variance for that part. We do need a variance for building within the 15-foot setback vertical.
But then they don't they need the variance for the residence A height? Is that what you're saying, Lynn?
The residence A height, the building height is, so the midpoint would be 20 feet, and the total building height at the peak of the roof would be 25 in the setback, in the 15 to 25 foot setback for the A residence zone for the side yard.
So
And we are at 18 mean and 22 foot 1 total. So we are well below all the height restrictions for that side yard. So I think according to you, we are conforming within that 15 to 25.
Yes.
Okay.
So are they looking for a coverage variance? I don't know why we're having such a hard time figuring this out.
Well, we want to build over the existing garage, which
is
falls
non-conforming.
within the 15-foot setback.
Yeah, so Laura, you see the vertical line sort of midway between, I'm sorry, Lynn, could you go back to that where you just were? See the left-hand garage door, Laura?
Yes.
Yeah, that line that's the 15-foot line. So everything to the left of that,
Yeah.
above, you see there's a little light orange line that goes from everything above that and to the left is new construction inside the 15-foot setback. That's what they need the variance for, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
John, can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, so Luke, if you look at the vertical line at 15 feet, it basically comes right where Lynn's cursor is. Okay, you see that? That's the setback, side yard setback to 15 feet. So we've got
That's already there, correct?
Yeah, exactly. You've got a non-conforming structure to begin with because the garage is partially in the side yard setback. Then, Luke, you see the little orange line there diagonally on like a 45?
Those orange lines are the existing roof lines.
Exactly. So that everything above the orange line and to the left of the line at 15 feet is additional right where Lynn is additional non-conformity in the setback. That's what they need the variance for. Does that make sense, Luke?
So the area between the 15 and the 25 is compliant.
Yes.
Yes, that's
So the total height is not.
yes, because the height is not an issue.
What's the allowable total height?
25.
Yeah, it's 25.
Can you scroll to the right on this picture, on this plan? So, so it's 23.2 is the total height for the rest. My problem is based on what town council told us at the last, when we had that session on what you need to get a variance and where our authority to grant variances ends. I don't understand how we have authority here to grant this variance. I mean, he told us that the fact that it's, a pre-existing structure and zoning change does not constitute grounds for a variance unless there's no reasonable use they can make of the property. He said it's just like an impossible test. I forgot the name of the case he cited on it, but apparently there was, a case on that. So, and their grounds they're requesting this for, that they have a pre-existing structure and, is not a ground we can grant a variance for.
Well, the hardship is the fact that the house is already non-conforming, and we'd like
But
to
we're
do-
making it more non-conforming. That's where it's grandfathered in so it can stay non-conforming. But our jurisdiction is circumscribed on where we can and can't grant variances.
I don't understand. We're asking to make it basically not more non-conforming. That's
No,
what
you're making it more non-conforming. That's why you need a variance.
exactly.
Correct.
That's why we're asking for it.
And our ability to grant variance, I'm saying our jurisdiction is limited, and there's only certain grounds that we're allowed to grant variances for. Like the fact that someone sees a more beneficial use for a property, or they would prefer it this way, or the value of it might be more one way than the other, or something like that, are all not grounds we're allowed to grant variances for.
There has to be a hardship, a legal hardship with the land that would permit or underlie the reasons for the variance. Having the design as you proposed it architecturally doesn't necessarily establish a hardship for the land. It's inconvenient, of course. I understand that when there's been money invested in architectural plans, but anytime this type of issue has come up before, we have had to propose that there might be a different architectural plan that would not require any type of variance, particularly when there does not appear yet to be a hardship established legally.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. I've done this before. This exact same situation where the house was sitting, the hardship was the house was existing non-conforming. It sat within the original front yard setbacks, and it was approved.
But that doesn't mean just because you have a house that's non-conforming doesn't mean you can make it more non-conforming.
It was being made non-conforming, more non-conforming.
I know, I'm saying the fact you need a ground for a hardship, and I'm saying being a pre-existing non-conforming house is not itself a hardship.
But then I don't understand why it was approved for the first, a previous house. It's the
unique, the facts and circumstances are unique to the property in question. And it's hard for us to say why that was or was not approved and by whom.
If you would like to go back and try to, rework some of the architectural plans, but I can tell by the way the board is reacting to the plans, it doesn't look like we can legally do it. There's just not enough, there's no hardship. We just don't have the jurisdiction to just, throw out the regulations.
I'm sorry, but I thought that's what your whole purpose is.
To just throw them out? No.
Throw them out, obviously, but.
Well, our purpose is that if they pass zoning and it deprives someone of substantially all use of their property. It'd be a Fifth Amendment taking. So essentially, our job is to make sure there's still some reason, to summarize it, essentially some reasonable use of it. But we can't, it's against public policy for there to be spot zoning. All the properties are supposed to comply with zoning. It's just sometimes there's a unique characteristic related to the lot, like might have a swamp on one side, so you can't put a house on that side, or it might be too big of a slope, so you can't put something there, or something like that that's unique to that one property. And because of that, depriving someone of reasonable use of their property, then we can grant a variance, but it has to be unique to that property. And it has to be something that runs with the land. Like, we can't, the fact that granting a variance might make something more valuable or preferable or aesthetically pleasing or something like that, or the courts have said we can't, or because a property owner might like it more that way, the courts have said we can't grant a variance in those contexts.
Well, I mean, I guess, I mean, we're not doing this for, for value or aesthetic purposes. I mean, we moved here 5 years ago. Our family has grown. We need, more space. This is sort of the most, we have this currently unutilized space over the garage that is just, right now in an attic. By putting a relatively modest, change to the roof line, we can get a lot more livable space out of that, without, blowing out the current footprint of the home, because we are, our hands are tied with coverage as well. So this is sort of the most straightforward, option we have.
But a personal hardship, I'm saying, which is like what you have, is not a grounds we're allowed to use to support a variance.
Lynn, is there any way the applicant can come in to sit with you, and maybe you can work through with them, how they can architecturally maybe move some things around, or to make it a bit more suitable to the regulations?
Sure, we could sit down and have a conversation and see what the options are.
If we remove the shed dormer and just increase the pitch, is that an issue? So we went from the orange line to the new roof line.
To get rid of the dormer.
Well, does that then make it more non-compliant in that area?
It makes it less more compliant.
Less non-conforming.
See, our problem, at least I see, is not an issue, but whether or not we have a problem with this proposal. It's just our jurisdiction is limited. So what? So I don't think that necessarily would help with the situation that we're seeing here, which, we recently, had I don't know, I think it was our last CBA meeting, the town council discussed this issue with us. So I don't see that as fixing my concern, because we still have to be able to show if there's a hardship that's unique to the land. I mean, even if it doesn't matter if it's 1 inch or 1 foot, we still have to be able to list what that hardship is.
Well, I'm assuming that we were assuming that the hardship was the actual location of the house on the property.
I mean, is there anything, can you go out toward the back of the property?
And you could.
So that,
There's a
with
patio there that you could, but it would be off the garage.
I mean, we're just trying to help you out here to try to, you may want to go in and speak to Lynn, or, I mean, is to see, just to give you some.
Well, no, I mean, obviously, yes, I can do a whole new addition or whatever. The thought was to just try and save whatever as far as, working within the existing footprint. And it was my assumption that the ZBA would be, this would be an applicable thing for you to do, based on what I was assuming was a hardship in the location of the house on the property. So it, I don't know, I'm just a little confused as to why ZBA would not be able to grant something like this.
Because we can only, because it's against,
And your argument for, because of it, but I don't understand why you wouldn't be able to myself.
I mean, we're bound to, by the regulations, and that's out of our jurisdiction. I mean, and like we said, it's a case by case basis, and it is based on the land.
Okay, I guess.
Lynn, is there any way we can help them?
I mean, we could opt to continue it, and we could sit down and have a conversation, and maybe there's slight changes we could make that would help it.
Right.
But you're saying there's nothing I can do with that, within that 0 to 15 that the ZBA has any jurisdiction over. So there's no point in continuing it. It's moot. You can't do anything about it, and that's it.
I think it would be useful for you to continue and discuss the options with Lynn, because it just sounds like you may need to understand more of what kinds of things have constituted a hardship associated with the property. And if you can put a fair argument in front of us, that might make this seem like the best option for you. You did mention there would be a coverage issue otherwise. If building out on your property, not necessarily the coverage, but impacted other things, whether it be some sort of grading issue with the land, if there is an easement, a town sewer line, those are the types of things you might have, if you were on the call earlier, you might have heard some of them mentioned. I know my own property, there's an easement, so that would impact me on one side. You might want to just
wetlands. Do you have wetlands or anything like that on the property, or?
It's a level piece of property, no wetlands, no easements.
I think the other thing that makes it hard is that this house is kind of consistent with the houses around it. It's not like this is unique to the neighborhood per se. So it's a hard fact pattern.
Well, I mean, there's houses that are a lot taller and, bigger than our house on the street. So.
But there's also ones that are similar. I'm saying it's kind of like it's like, were you on for the last one where they wanted to put the pool equipment and they had to show really there's nowhere else they could put the pool equipment?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we had, they could have put it.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, yes, there are similar homes in our neighborhood, but not with a young family with 3 small kids. It's older couples that move out, and the people, renovate or knock it down and build a new home. What we were trying to do here was just use the current footprint of our home, without extending back to increase the coverage, because we don't really have that much wiggle room there, and to just make our house more usable for us.
Yeah, and we are really sympathetic to what you're saying. I mean, we hear it all the time. But it may be in your best interest, like Jessica said, to just keep it open, have a conversation with Lynn, meet with her. She's terrific. She'll talk to you about hardships, and maybe you can just have a different idea. And I cannot promise you that if you do something and bring it in front of us that it'll be granted, but from from what these plans are looking like right now, we don't see enough of a hardship to move it through. So, but we want to give you the benefit of the doubt and give you the opportunity, if you would like that, to keep it open and have the opportunity to come back again.
Do you want to keep it open?
I guess, I mean, there's nothing, I mean,
It doesn't hurt to talk.
yeah.
What's that?
It doesn't hurt to talk with is it Lynn?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll, I guess, postpone it. What was the term?
Continue.
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 Dave, you
it.
might be able to talk to your surveyor or
Yeah.
or maybe like an attorney in town or someone on like what might constitute like a ground for hardship.
Yeah. I mean,
Like some sort of professional who's like experienced with that.
because sometimes they can see things a little bit differently and argue for you. I mean, we're not advocating that, but sometimes they have a different idea of, or they are able to present it in a sense, you know, maybe we're not seeing something.
Okay.
Thought this seemed pretty straightforward, but I guess not. Okay, all right, so I guess I'll reach out to Lynn and schedule something.
Okay. All right, so we're going to continue that.
Can we move forward with the other parts of it?
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, Lynn?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, Lynn, do we have our minutes that we need to go through or any other business?
We do have some other business. So we have the approval of minutes and then the approval of the 2022 meeting schedule. The last time we met was in October. The schedule gets posted in November, so we would have approved it at a November meeting, which we never had because there were no cases. So we need your formal approval of the 2022 meeting schedule.
Okay, I move to approve the meeting schedule for 2022. Anyone want to?
I'll second. Carden, second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Ashton in favor.
It looks like it's unanimous.
And the minutes
Um,
of the last meeting, October 4th.
I didn't see them. Did anyone see them? I don't know if.
Let me see. Oh, I see. I see.
I don't think they came through with the attachments, but they were posted if you go to the homepage of the town
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't. see
and
it.
go to the calendar, they're there.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to open right now so that I can display them on the screen for you.
On the way. They weren't there.
No, I don't remember seeing them.
So,
No, they're there, October 4th draft minutes on the calendar thing.
Oh,
it was a while ago that we met last.
There's-
oh, you know what we forgot to do, Lynn, is Cynthia officially on the board for takeout Ben with Kevin there?
She was appointed. I don't know if she was sworn in yet.
Oh, okay. Cynthia, were you sworn in?
Yes, I was sworn in.
Oh, okay. So Kevin didn't need to say anything while he was here.
No.
Okay. Welcome, Cynthia. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So this was the minutes.
Oh, that was just with the,
This was the Park Place matter.
oh, really?
And they withdrew the application at
Okay.
this meeting, so.
Okay.
Oh, is that the one where they were gonna put the driveway in?
Yes.
I feel like it looks okay, right? Does everybody?
Looks fine to me. I would move that we accept the minutes as written.
I second that.
Is everyone done reading it? Can I stop sharing?
I think so.
I'm gonna take that as a yes.
Rich, you look like you're in an aquarium there.
So wait, you made a motion and a second. Did you vote on it?
Okay, all those in favor to approve the minutes?
Ashton in favor?
It's unanimous.
So, and then Laura, I didn't do it at the beginning and I apologize, I meant to, but I just wanted to introduce you all to Sarah Carey. She's our new assistant zoning inspector. She
Oh.
replaces Ben. So
Hi,
she came into
Sarah.
the office.
Hello.
It's Sarah, I was wondering, I thought she was a reporter.
No.
Welcome, Sarah.
Welcome,
Thank
Sarah.
you. Yeah.
It was a long night to be christened.
Yeah. No worries.
Okay, anything else?
Are we gonna discuss when we're meeting in person again?
Oh, that's up to you guys. I know the last time there was some opposition, but how are we feeling about it? You want to meet in person? I'll do whatever you want.
We're fully vaccinated now. I think I was one of the opposition votes just because my son hadn't been yet, but we're kind of okay, and I think things have actually loosened up in the schools as well. So
okay,
I think Luke has younger kids, so
I'm
happy
okay
to
with it.
stand in alliance if he needs support.
No, I'm okay. I mean, I think the one thing that's nice about Zoom is I think it might make it easier for some people to attend than coming in person.
yeah,
But I'm
definitely
fine, especially like
definitely
neighbors and
more
people like that.
Yeah.
So do you want me to schedule the April meeting, since it looks like we're gonna have an April meeting because we've got 2 continued items as an in-person in the boardroom as opposed to a Zoom?
Well, can we do it back and forth, or like what, if we say we're going to go back, does that mean we 100% have to go back all the time, or could it be a month to month, or?
It's a month to month right now until I believe the current legislation would expire. I think it's June, and but I can get the exact date. But the April meeting would be within the you could choose meeting to meeting. So.
All right, well, why don't we do a couple more months and you want to do another month, say, of Zoom, and then we'll see how it is after that. Does that sound okay to everybody?
Sounds good.
Sure.
Good.
All right, so let's do another month of Zoom, and then we'll check back in with it. Remind me the next time.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate all your help.
So do you guys move to adjourn?
Do we move to adjourn?
Yes, second.
Passion in favor?
Okay. All right. Until we meet again.
Have a good night.
Thank
All right.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.